It's Thursday, 26 October, year of our Lord 2023. We've got a cold open. I've got Ben Harnwell, Sam Faddis. We've got a lot to go through tonight. I want to start with our own Grace Chong, the queen of the trolls. Grace, as people know, with Mo, kind of run everything in the war room. She's the head cook and bottle washer. But tonight, her coming out party on the great Tim Pool show, the Timcast. Grace, you're on. What time is it live? I want to make sure everybody's checking that out. It's up on YouTube tonight.
It's up on YouTube. It's from 8 p.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. There's also going to be a members only, which is going to be on timcast.com. So if you're a member or sign up to be a member, you can catch that as well. So I'm really excited to represent War Room and, of course, the War Room Posse. And I'm going to make you guys proud. And Steve, can I just get into a couple announcements or surprise announcements?
Yeah, just before the announcements, you know, Grace is a very shy. It takes us pulling teeth to get Grace to come on War Room. You know, it was like Carrie Lake. I was talking to Carrie. I did a little short presentation to a group that Carrie Lake was talking to last night. And I said, you know, Carrie, ever since you went to the Senate, I can't book you on War Room. You know, Grace, it's impossible to book her on War Room, but she's out doing the Tim Pool show. Taking her stall truck.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. Are we gonna stream the Tim Pool on Getter tonight?
We are going to stream it. I'm going to stream it myself from the Tim Pool studio, and I'm going to do some just give you a little bit of the inside scoop and show everyone around before it starts. So make sure it'll be on Getter.
Wow. What time is that going to start? People got to see. Tim Pool's got a compound. And here's the thing. This is what I admire about Tim. Every now and again, he will come to the Capitol Hill or go to Miami, do a road show. He'll go to Gates' office, and you can go over there and do it. But other than that, he's pretty stringent. You got to go to essentially Harper's Ferry, the middle of nowhere, to do the show. I mean, Grace, it's so unusual to see a L.A. girl, because Grace lives right on the water. I mean, she's complete, Marina Del Rey, the total complete LA hipster. To get her to go to the middle of nowhere is really something. You're going to show the background?
Yes.
Oh, at least.
I'm going to show hopefully everything as they allow me to. But definitely tune in. There's going to be 2 really special announcements. One is the new merch drop. And the reason why you have to tune in is because we're going to have a special discount code. So everything you guys have been asking for, sweatshirts, I have it on right now. And it's going to go live tonight. And also another project that we've been working on, which the Posse is going to love. It's a tool. It's also going to bring in just more voices into the political sphere. And everyone's going to be blown away by it. And I'm just so excited for it. So definitely tune in. 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. and then the members only, which is going to be 10 to 11.
When are you going to do the streaming in the background? Are you going to do that between the 8 and 10, or is that going to be a bonus segment for
bonus segment? I'm going to do it before. I'm going to do it before, so it'll be the bonus. Yeah.
So what's your time so people get up on Getter or on Rumble? What time is it going? 7:30 or 7:30? The Tim Pool show's at 8. 7:30. Yes. Okay, so 7:30, Grace, she'll be doing that. And by the way, Tim Pool operation's absolutely amazing. What these guys do is incredible. So it's always great to hang out with them. And so you got 2 major announcements. You got a merch drop, plus you got something Grace has been putting an enormous amount of time into. It's going to be a kind of a game changer. And coming off the timing, Grace couldn't be more perfect. You there for the vanguard of the Posse on really the day after this monumental victory in the for the House Speaker. It's just the timing is just incredible, and you've had this booked for a long time, so the timing's great.
And this is what I've actually said on Twitter and Getter is that with our new speaker, our work is just beginning, and so we've got a lot of work to do, got a lot of work ahead of us. And I know the Posse, we're all about action, action, action. So definitely tune in. I'm really excited and would love all the support.
We're just excited to get you out of California. Maybe we can convince you. I've been trying to convince Grace to come back and run things out of D.C. for years. Can't do it. California girl, can't lose that. Grace, it's fantastic. So what is your social media handles? Give them all, and including the ones I know at Twitter, you're banned, you're blocked, you're back on. It's a sketchy thing because that comes in a little hot. She's like a Mike Davis. on occasions.
Yes.
Where do people go to find you on social media?
So Twitter, formerly known as X, GC22GC. Getter, of course, at Grace Chong. True Social, at Grace Chong. And, of course, follow all of our War Room accounts. We're now on True Social, Steve Bannon's War Room, Instagram, Getter, Rumble. We're on, except for Twitter, formerly known as X.
Yeah, duly noted. Can't do Twitter while it's CCP owned. But hey, I don't mind if you guys do.
No, but we have so many Grace, we have so many force multipliers on Twitter, so we love them all.
Grace, really excited about tonight. Congratulations. I know everybody looks forward to seeing it. We'll see you then and check in afterwards.
Thank you.
The Grace Chong. Grace only has about 50 jobs at the War Room. Being our CFO is probably number 9 or 10. And I think Grace has worked at companies I've been involved with, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years, maybe 15 years, maybe 20. And she was just a kid. She was a teenager when she showed up. Still a very young woman. Let's play. I tell you what, I got a cold open I want to play. And then I'm gonna bring in Ben Harnwell from Harnwell. Let's go. Let's play this cold open. I'll make some commentary. Then we'll bring in Ben.
Damn right. So today, that faction, the MAGA faction, the anti-democracy faction, the far right, won, and they celebrated. The chief architect of this battle, Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida, took a victory lap on Steve Bannon's program.
MAGA is ascendant, and if you don't think that moving from Kevin McCarthy to MAGA Mike Johnson shows the ascendance of this movement and where the power in the Republican Party truly lies, then you're not paying attention.
Now, Gaetz is talking his book, as always, and he'll probably do 19 more podcast hits before I come back and talk to you tomorrow night. He and his coalition are proud of what they've achieved. The majority of their caucus, including their new speaker, tried to overturn the last election. And they're proud of that. In fact, the message they're sending in choosing Mike Johnson, and this is important for everyone to understand, because that's where we are, is not only they're proud of that, but they are unbowed, and they are ready, and they are willing to try again.
He said it, he did it, and he's here. Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, my live guest in studio in Washington. I know it was a busy day on the floor. Thanks for being here.
Welcome to you to Washington. We're glad to have you here.
Here I am. Let's get right to it.
Sure.
What does today's speaker vote mean? And did you cut any side deals this time like we heard about last time?
No side deals. This speaker election means that the House Republican Conference is united, really, for the first time this Congress. We are united behind a man of deep faith who obeys Almighty God and the Constitution before all else, and I was proud to support him. He's not someone who comes from any particular faction of the Republican Conference.
I don't know about that.
Well, he has strong relationships from our most moderate members to our most conservative members. And you know what? Everyone feels listened to with Mike Johnson. He has a great tone, a great leadership skill stack, and I'm going to do everything I can to make him successful.
One of the things...
Now, Congressman, new Speaker Mike Johnson, your thoughts?
Well, you cannot get to the right of Mike Johnson in the MAGA caucus. It's inconceivable that you could get to the right of him. I mean, there are people who are definitely more lunatic than he is. And he's got very good manners, and he's an able lawyer. But when we say he opposed democracy, we know that from his giving a legal gloss and finish to all of Donald Trump's arguments about electoral fraud and making the independent state legislature doctrine argument, which the Supreme Court fortunately did not bite on. But if he's not for democracy, what's he for? He's for theocracy. He wants a nationwide ban on abortion with no exceptions for rape or incest. He voted against affirming women's right to travel across state lines for the purposes of obtaining health care. He's also voted against reaffirming women's contraceptive rights. He is a real enemy of Social Security from my perspective. He wanted to increase the age of Social Security retirement to 70 years old. He's very much in the Steve Bannon mode of trying to dismantle the regulatory state, by which they mean democracy itself. And so he's a decent guy, and he's a nice guy, but nobody should be fooled by it. Donald Trump cemented his hold over the Republican Party today, and he is in control of the House of Representatives right now.
Big picture, take it all together. Did Matt Gaetz and the rebels win because you got the speaker you wanted, and now you don't have to vacate or play those strategies anymore? Or are Matt Gaetz and the so-called rebels still out here, and Johnson should be just as worried over his shoulder as McCarthy?
It's the former. We are here to make Mike Johnson as successful as a speaker as he can possibly be. He has sat next to me for 7 years on the House Judiciary Committee. We served together on House Armed Services. We have very aligned perspectives on a vast majority of issues. So this is our guy. This isn't a guy that we're going to chase around with a motion to vacate. This is a guy we're going to do everything we can to pour into and make successful.
I gave you time. I want to mention for viewers, it's your guy, which is different from how we started the interview, which he said he's everybody's guy, he's across the board, but now he's your side's.
Well,
your team's guy.
Look, he can be our guy, and he can be the guy for other folks. Everybody voted for him, but I think people can be enthusiastic about Mike Johnson for different reasons. Yeah. I'm very enthusiastic about him being an honest man, a true conservative. I think others that might not hold his perspective on some of those policy questions really like his leadership style.
Well, I thank you for coming on.
This is the Speaker of the House. You go on and on down the list, but Donnie, it is it not, the victory of MAGA in this case of Donald Trump squashed Emmer, right? He wasn't quite loyal enough to Donald Trump. When some people got to Trump and said, hey, here's all this stuff that Emmer said, Trump puts out the post, he's done. And at the end of the day, gets his guy. When you have Matt Gaetz running onto Steve Bannon's podcast yesterday to celebrate this, it tells you who won.
Oh. It tells you who won, but I keep going. This is a loser in a general election. If this is where the party is no longer the Republican Party. It's the MAGA Party. That's the party. As my good friend Joe Scarborough would say, insurrectionists, weirdos, and freaks.
Yeah.
Well, here you got a poster boy right up there.
Major.
Here's the key, Brendan. And we talked about this last time. They have successfully, in their own conference, imposed minority will on the conference. They have a vanguardist vision of how to do this. They tried to impose a minority president on the United States. They then had a rump faction of 8 votes that broke the conference, and when Steve Scalise won the internal vote, they said, no, we don't accept it. They have gotten their way as a minoritarian vanguardist movement at many steps. They think they could do it for the whole government.
Absolutely. But they can't on the policy matters. And the thing is, all of the things that you talked about in your monologue about who he is, Republicans don't bat an eye about that stuff. All the things you listed are pretty mainstream for the conference right now. The reality is you just can't make those things policy. Now, they can stop things, and I think we need to be very concerned about the ability of the House to process funding for Ukraine. They can not do things, but actually proactively bringing bills to the floor on abortion, they already did that. It was the first thing the House did this Congress was a series of bills on abortion. So that's not changing, but it's not going anywhere. Now, what happened potentially if Mike Johnson is Speaker of the House when we need to certify the next presidential election? Keep a close eye on that.
Yes.
In terms of imposing their will on Medicare and Social Security, I don't think you need to lose much sleep about it, Chris.
No.
You see what I've done right there? To work my own technology. The minority vanguardist movement. No, we let that play. Minority vanguardist movement. We have a lot to do. Remember what Brandon Buck said, and that was Paul Ryan's comms director. He was very dialed in the entire time that Paul Ryan was around as not just a budget director or head of budget for the budget committee, and then as a speaker. They can stop things. They can not do things. That's where our power is right now. We can't enforce our will on everything yet. We're going to get there, but we can't stop things. Very good analysis by our enemies at MSNBC, and a very good breakdown. I want to thank the team for putting it together. I want to bring in one of the things we can stop, and this is why Nancy Mace broke some big news today, was how do you actually bifurcate and triage these supplemental spending bills in the CR, all that's coming hurtling down to us, Nancy Mace said, and she's a pretty big hawk and has had a reputation of being a neocon. She said, no, even bifurcating Ukraine and Israel, which we have to do. Even the Israel segment of this supplemental has to wait until we come to grips with securing the southern border. Over in the Senate, a massive thing. Mitch McConnell at the Senate legislature, they made another huge pitch where it's all got to be put together, the supplemental, and Ukraine's got to get $80 billion, which puts us at $200 billion. And remember, there's no plan of what goes forward. There's another $100 billion after that, another $100 billion after that, because nobody's laid out a plan. Well, some heroic senators led by Roger Marshall of Kansas, J.D. Vance of Ohio, Mike Lee of Utah, and Ted Cruz of the Republic of Texas have come forward and said, no, we're putting forward a proposal. We got to bifurcate these right now. We have to discuss Israel different than Ukraine. I want to bring in Ben Harnwell. Ben Harnwell, the populist right continues a massive victory for the populist right in the last 24, 48 hours in the United States of America, but there are victories happening all over where they're not stealing them. And Ukraine is at the heart of this and the big developments in Europe on Ukraine. So walk me through what's going on with the populist right in Europe and where do we stand on Ukraine?
Good evening, Steve. I love that cold open that you had on just now. In fact, I half wish you wouldn't have me at all and just continued that glorious collage of analysis all the way through. It was absolutely beautiful. I think what the mainstream media are really going to start sort of picking up now as we move forward to the presidential election in November next year. They're absolutely right to say that MAGA does not represent the whole totality of the GOP. That's absolutely true. What they're going to find out the hard way when they start losing seats is that it does represent the majority of the United States. That's where the country is right now. They're just pretending they can't see that. Elsewhere in the world, Steve, today there is so much good news. I don't really know where to start. I want to start with this, however, and build on it. If Memphis would very kindly pick up my first article here in the Financial Times. Thanks, guys. This is just an illustration. It's not only the United States that has important elections and then queries the result afterwards. That's entirely legitimate and I think becoming increasingly important that countries do this when something is amiss. Here, however, in Switzerland, it's slightly a different situation. I don't know whether the headline says that Switzerland revises election results after counting error. I don't know whether that counting error should be in air quotation marks because well, no, it is, Steve. The counting error. Well, look, we all know how precise. Let me use that word. How precise the Swiss are. Famously precise. It does seem somewhat unusual that they could make an error which basically multiplied the vote count in 3 of Switzerland's 26 cantons by up to 3 to 5 times. This is a huge thing. Even though the actual mistake turned out it was less than 0.5% in total votes, from around 29.5 down to 28. But what this result is, Steve, is, and the reason I say air quotation marks, is because this is, they said 2 days after the vote took place, they said, they discovered some discrepancies, which moves power away from what the Financial Times is calling the far right towards the centre right, and boosts by a similar number the two Green parties in Switzerland. But I wanted to pull that up. Never let anyone say that. Let's just assume this is a genuine, authentic anomaly. I don't know whether I believe that, but let's just assume it is. It is absolutely legitimate to query election results even after voting has taken place. That's the first thing. Obviously, the people that we just did in MSNBC and what have you, they pull their hair out when we in MAGA asked to revisit and ask the courts to revisit ballots after they've been cast. They're obviously not doing that in this situation, and that should be flagged up for future reference. Absolutely legitimate, however, to do so, even though I think in this case further questions should be asked simply because of the direction of the change. The second story I'm going to go, I've got a very important story from Slovakia coming up, Steve. But before that, I just want to visit the UK, where very interestingly, in the House of Commons, John Healy, who's the Labour Party spokesman for defence, he's the shadow defence secretary. He said that that we have to maintain leadership and accelerate support. And here's the killer quote: "And I fear the UK momentum in Ukraine, that is flagging." And he calls the Conservative government to account, saying that there's been no statement on Ukraine in Parliament from the new Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, since he was appointed in August, and no statement generally from any Defence Secretary in this House, that's the House of Commons, since May. Still, there's a reason for that. And obviously the Labour Party is trying to rally support for Ukraine. That is because the Tory Party is on the skids. It knows it's going to be in for a massacring in the next general election. And it is trying, somewhat belatedly, somewhat too little, too late, to pivot to where the country is. And the UK is no longer fully behind the Ukraine, funding the Ukraine war, and wants that money redirected to the UK. It's the same debate in the United States, Steve, where the UK is absolutely insistent now, it's been enough time, that something should be done about the invasion of third world illegals across the English Channel into the United Kingdom. The Tory party is, it's making noises. We'll see whether there's any genuine action coming from that. Here's Steve. This is a story which you put out on Getter. This is interesting now. Robert Fico, who's the new Slovakian Prime Minister. This is a case where, look, in Europe, populists can be a bit mushy. They promise one thing when they're trying to court press publicity, trying to rally the base. They might amplify that in an election campaign, and then suddenly, the moment they're sworn into office, those promises they evaporate like summer snow. One populist politician who never did that was Matteo Salvini here in Italy, and he always tweeted whenever he implemented something as Home Minister, from words to action. There's a similar thing here, and this is how you can really separate the wheat from the chaff. Robert Fico in the election campaign actually had a campaign slogan. I think we covered this on the War Room, Steve. He said, "Not one more round for Ukraine." That was a persistent campaign slogan. He won that election in Slovakia. And now what has he said today? This is the first Western government who said that they are withdrawing all military and financial support to Ukraine. This is what he said to members of parliament. He said that the country would no longer supply weapons to Ukraine. "I will support zero military aid to Ukraine. An immediate halt to military operations is the best solution we have for Ukraine. The EU should change from arms supplier to peacemaker," he said. So, when countries are starting to pivot like this, one wonders why the American administration, why President Biden isn't similarly putting America first, as we see here, Slovakia putting Slovakians first. The answer to that is obvious, and what is required in the United States is a change of administration. The fourth story I have for you is there is movement here in the United States. You mentioned now the hopes and anticipations of the country rallying behind the new speaker. In the Senate, Rand Paul is calling for today an immediate, within 30 days, a cancellation of all military aid to the Republic of Niger in Africa. Now, you might be saying, I didn't know the United States was even supporting Niger. It is doing. It just gave $200 million a couple of months ago, and you guys have more than 1,000 military personnel there. Now, you might say this is a drop in the ocean compared to what's going on with Ukraine, but it's a start, and I'm very happy to see Senator Paul here making the case. He didn't use these words, but making the case of putting America first and not Niger first. So that's the roundup of the news.
Before I let you go, how big is Slovakia? I mean, we're having this big debate right now on Ukraine. It's going to get to be on fire here starting over the weekend as we get revved up on it. How big is Slovakia? You got the Labour Party. You got a lot of people saying, hey, we're too tired, we're too broke, we can't do this. But how big is Slovakia doing it as kind of up in people's grill as they did it?
So, Steve, Slovakia is one of the smallest member states in the of the 27 in the European Union. However, the importance of this is that Slovakia is the first country, member of the European Union, to publicly break rank now from the EU, US, NATO position. That's why this is important. This is basically the first country to say enough. We're out. We're not putting any more in. So I think that will be, look, it's similar to the story I hit on the show live from Madrid airport when I said that Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has said that France will violate the European Convention on Human Rights if it has to, but it's going to forcibly start repatriating illegals from France back to their countries of origin. And in fact, if France has to pay a fine, it has to pay a fine. The importance of that, because obviously France is a pillar of the European Union. It's a pillar of the Europism of the European Union. You know, the importance of that is that it's now very difficult for other countries, frontier countries, like here in Italy, like Giorgia Meloni, to continue to say this immigration crisis in Europe is for Brussels to deal with. It's difficult for her to say that when France has said more.
Ben, just hang on 1 second. We're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be back. We got Sam Faddis, Ben Harnwell next in the War Room.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back, Ben. Can you give your coordinates? I don't want to say I hit over 5 million on Getter tonight, or I guess last night. I want to attribute that from my reposting of yours. You've kind of turbocharged my account, so I want to thank you as I repost every day. Ben's. I'm amazed. You probably have, given the number of followers you probably have the highest engagement ratios of anybody on Twitter or Getter or anywhere. They're pretty extraordinary. When I get your things, I've already got over 2,000 likes or 2,500 likes. It's amazing. It's amazing how you actually do it. It's incredible. It's incredible stuff.
Thanks, Steve. Please don't sound so surprised, though. No, look, I'm very grateful for the best profile on the Getter platform, Steve Bannon. I'm very grateful for that profile for you personally, in sharing my stuff and getting it out there. Very, very grateful. So folks, my coordinates are there. Go to @Steve Bannon, and that's where you'll find me reposted. The other places you'll find me, you'll need to register on the warroom.org website for our newsletter, which is fantastic, which, as you were saying before, Grace and Mo put that out. It has exclusive content on there from me, from Joe Allen, from Natalie Winters, right? Do if you haven't done that, folks, please do that. And then the other place you can get me is on the War Room's channel on Rumble, which is absolutely fantastic, and that's @Bannon's War Room. Those are the three places, Steve. Thanks very much, and God bless.
Yeah, as we've had, Ben's been out traveling, making speeches, but also as we've been fighting on this house fight, we're going to start to reorient. There's so much going on in this Third World War. We're going to get Ben in more with the perspective from Europe, what's happening with the populist movement there, and particularly this whole situation on the one front in Ukraine. That's got to be dealt with. And there's going to be a massive fight here for the vanguard of the war and posse. We'll be bringing in Ben a lot over the next days and weeks. Ben, thank you very much for being on top of things. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. God bless.
One thing we're also doing, in building the Patriot economy, we're going to start giving some visibility to more and more companies that are in kind of the security business and in the particularly digital security and on phones, things like that. New sponsor, SLNT, stands for Silent. SLNT, they make these Faraday bags. Have you ever noticed you've had a conversation with like your friends, and then next thing you know, you're looking on your phone and like ads are popping up on things that you've never really done online? Look, don't be paranoid. Here's what you need to do. You go to SLNT. They've got amazing, and you go to slnt.com right now /Bannon. You can get a 15% discount. They've got a vast array of Faraday bags for your iPad, for your computer, for your phones, all of it. Once you put your device in there, the bad guys, or quote unquote the good guys, can no longer track you, can no longer follow you. So don't take this as something that doesn't happen. I will tell you about briefings we got in the very first days when we were in the White House about your cell phones and about the capabilities out there for people to listen in. Make sure that you're 100. Just check another box. Make sure that you're 100% secure. Go to slnt.com/Bannon right now. You will see a vast array of products. All of these are guaranteed. Once you put your phones or your computers or your iPads or whatever in there, nobody can listen in. Nobody can check it out. So go check it out today. SLNT stands for silent, bigger than a brand. It's a movement. Sam Faddis, you wrote a book, which I keep telling people every time I meet them, if they want to find out about the CIA, it's one of the must reads. But I think that book was over a decade ago, A Decline and Fall of the CIA. You gave a speech at Hillsdale, The CIA No Longer Works and How to Fix It. Here's why this is important. Brother, we're sitting here, we're getting sucked into another Middle East war, and I realize we've got allies in Israel. They got to take care of business with both the Muslim Brotherhood to the south, and you got the Persian proxy army of the Party of God coming out of Lebanon. But you got to help me out here, Sam. When you talk about fixing the CIA, how did they miss with all the assets they've got with the Egyptians, with the Saudis, with UAE, with the Kuwaitis, even in some with Qatar? And the Israelis, the Mossad, Shin Bet, and then IDF military intelligence, which I argue is the best in the world. How did Israel and the United States get so caught by surprise in what they're saying is a 9/11 Pearl Harbor combo package? Help me out there first, and then you can tell me how we're going to fix it. Because is it even fixable?
Right. So to take the first issue, it remains incomprehensible to me that the Israelis missed this, because in my experience, Shin Bet, their interval service, has Gaza wired 6 ways from Sunday. You literally can't sneeze. Half the people in Gaza are on somebody's payroll, and most of them are talking to the Israelis. So that remains a mystery to be unraveled. In terms of American intelligence, here's the sad reality in many cases. We're not running our own sources. CIA officers are not going out in the field and recruiting bad guys and having them report to us. We're relying upon what agencies would call liaison services. So we go and talk to the Egyptians, talk to the Jordanians, talk to whoever. So first of all, there's the issue of what they know and how competent they are. And then here's another big issue. What do they want to tell you? They may know all kinds of things and not pass it to American intelligence. This has been evident for many years, going back prior to 9/11, when we got caught flat-footed. We need to run our own sources. And there's a lot of pushback amongst the increasingly risk-averse CIA bureaucracy, because when you start going on the street running bad guys inside ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah, there's a lot of physical risk. You could wake up dead real fast. And so they prefer to sit down and talk to somebody else who then does the dirty work. And it leaves us blind all the time with all kinds of money and all kinds of technical capability. And then you ask them, how many sources does CIA have inside Hezbollah? And the answer is like shockingly few.
That I find that is very, very disturbing. And by the way, your background, you know this broad, tough, bad neighborhood pretty well, right? You've got decades of experience, personal experience in this region.
Yeah, and personal experience in going out and recruiting our own sources amongst these bad guys. And I don't want to make it sound like I was the only one. In shops that I ran, we did that extensively. But I can tell you, when I was chief of station on the ground in the Middle East, where we had a large number of U.S. forces in country and there were terrorist threats against them, and we went out and recruited sources inside those terrorist groups so we would have advance warning and could make sure attacks didn't take place. And I would get messages from headquarters saying, and I quote, "Stop wasting so much time on counterterrorism." And you're like, I got thousands of boys and girls here in uniform, and it's my job to keep them alive. And that's a waste of time? I don't get it.
Is the problem we have today, because you wrote the book, The Decline and Fall, 10, almost 15 years ago?
10.
And what happened when we took over in 16, took over 17, Pompeo was our first CIA director. The one thing I wanted him to do immediately was to unwind Brennan, that big ogre that's on TV all the time. He had merged in both the analytics and the operatives, kind of like when investment banking did it with trading and investment banking, put into one entity, I guess by country or by content, and allowed the non-operators who had always been kind of in the leadership positions, all of a sudden had the analytical people, where I think where Brennan were from, to have more of a voice. And Pompeo came back and said, look, that's been such a big project they've worked on for so long. Now they've done it. It would be so disruptive to undo it. And I adamantly disagreed with that, but I was overruled. Is that to the heart of what the current problem is? Is the current problem deeper than that, deeper than the reorganization of the CIA that has maybe the non-operators are not really in charge anymore?
Well, I mean, it is certainly a big piece of it, and it's symptomatic of what's going on, right? I mean, is it a bigger picture? Yeah. Look, espionage is this weird craft, and it is a craft, and you got to recruit. You got to go out and you got to recruit people with a very eclectic mix of skills, the kind of people that in another life might be stealing the crown jewels, the kind of folks who think outside the box. There is no such word as impossible. It's just a challenge. That's who you need, and then they got to drive ops. Now, having them talk to analysts and know the substantive matter and folding that in, that's great. I'm not opposed to that. But in the end of the day, it's got to be run by folks who, first of all, have all those abilities, and then, of course, you train them to a really high standard, and then you season them, right? I mean, I went out and made 500 asset meetings before anybody would seriously let me talk in a branch meeting in a station overseas. Like, okay, new guy, you came out of training. Now go do something and learn how to work on the street. Now it's like, it doesn't matter. We're all fungible. You can teach anybody to be a spy. You can just send them through a training course and they'll all be good. And then we'll all sit around a table and increasingly you're just talking, you're conducting meetings, you certainly becoming more and more risk averse. And we spend a lot of money and we hire a lot of people. We got more capability than anybody on the planet in that sense. And yet we're not getting the job done, right? I mean, in that sense, the organization has gone very soft. And it needs to be, it's like a military unit. I mean, it's like if you were a naval officer, you pull up on the pier and there's rust coming down the side of the ship and guys listening to rap music laying all over the top side, and you walk up the gangplank and nobody pipes you aboard, and you find guys watching porn on the bridge. What do you think's going on? This thing has gone to hell. Somebody needs to start cracking the whip, and we need to get back to doing what we are supposed to do. And of course, nobody has done that with the agency for many years now.
So it's not a surprise to people that there was massive resistance. In fact, I would argue that the heart of the resistance, the movement to basically not let Trump govern as soon as we stepped into office, right? The centerpiece of that was former CIA and even active CIA. Now we're in a shooting war. And we're going to get sucked into this Persian Middle East conflict pretty quickly if we don't understand what's going on. How do we do it with a apparatus that 75 or 80% of people question its competence, and then on the MAGA side we don't trust it, and we just think they're totally incompetent, and where they're not incompetent, they're out to overrule President Trump and MAGA actually returning and taking charge. So what's your plan of how we solve both of those at the beginning of another shooting war?
Well, first of all, I think you're absolutely right that there's, in addition to the incompetence, the bureaucratization, the going soft element of this, there's the whole politicization piece, right? The CIA shouldn't be within 10 miles of American domestic politics. If you get dragged into it, you ought to be, first of all, cashiered and thrown out, and then probably prosecuted. So that That's incomprehensible to me that we've allowed it to go down that road. How do we fix it right now? I mean, what you need is a director who goes in there who understands the place with the full backing of a president who will say, I got your back. You fire as many people as you need to. You make whatever changes you need to. Get this place back to fighting Trump. Here's obviously the $60,000 question. How the heck do you do that with this guy in the Oval Office? I can't imagine that the Biden administration is going to take any of these steps where they will do anything. And look, the guy that runs the CIA now, as far as I can tell, is also bought and paid for by the communist Chinese, right? He was up to his eyeballs in contact with Chinese intel before they made him director. So he's probably the last guy on the planet to make any of these changes.
What are you open to coming back and actually helping President Trump when we return in reordering because the entire intelligence apparatus? I mean, there's 17 different branches report to DNI. You still got the beating heart of the active intelligences, both CIA and DIA. The thing's a mess, and not just the cost of it, but how effective it is. Are you open to come back and work with President Trump in a second term?
Yeah, I mean, my wife will probably divorce me, Steve, so I'll be moving in with you. But no, I mean, all kidding aside.
Sam, we got room. Hold it, we got a room. We got a room in the. If I can get Faddis to come back and work with President Trump, we got room. We got room in either the carriage house or we got room in the embassy. So we'll get you. We'll get you a hot rack somewhere.
It would be my honor and my privilege, and as long as I'm working for somebody like Donald Trump who says, go fix it. Don't go over there and just preside over the disaster. I'm not interested in being there unless we're actually going to do it. And as I've said before to you, look, I really think that if you went in there and waded into this problem, what you would find is that the rank and file in the agency would be standing in the hallways cheering because they came there by and large to do God's work on behalf of the American people. And they know better than anybody else how broke it is, and they're chomping at the bit. But, man, they can't get through this without somebody making the changes at the top that have to be made.
By the way, when we went over, the very first thing Trump did on that Saturday after the inauguration and after the balls on Saturday, the very first thing we did, inauguration was on a Friday, very first thing we did was go to the CIA. And I can tell you 100%, we had 3 levels of meetings, kind of the higher up, the middle guys, and then the platoons, and the standing ovation President Trump got can show you that the everyday people at the CIA completely supported President Trump. The next tier, there was good. Some of it was a few stink eyes. The top, not so hot. We knew Pompeo had his work cut out for him. So, but you're right. I think we need, and you outlined it in your first book. How can people get this speech? You wrote this speech. I think you gave it at Hillsdale back on the 3rd of October. How can people get access to that and access to, you do tremendous work on the ground in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania about making sure we can't get future elections stolen from us. You're very active in that whole patriot movement there. How do people also get your thoughts about intelligence?
Well, if you go to And Magazine, so andmagazine.substack.com, we're going to put up the link to the Hillsdale speech and the video, so you can. That's the simplest way to get to it. We will link to it directly on And Magazine at Substack. In regard to the Pennsylvania stuff, we have a website, PennsylvaniaPatriotCoalition.com, all spelled out, PennsylvaniaPatriotCoalition.com, that links to this work we're doing. We got well over 100 Patriot groups statewide pushing the MAGA agenda all across Pennsylvania all day, every day.
No, you're seeing polling coming out now about President Trump, ahead in Pennsylvania. One of the big reasons is because of your coordination of these patriot groups. I mean, you've got tremendous patriots. Remember, they stole Pennsylvania. No doubt about how they stole Pennsylvania. Not even a question how they stole Pennsylvania. And you've got patriots out there that dedicated really their lives in working from that time to now and then through 2024 that it ain't going to happen again against the patriots out there in Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth. So fantastic. Sam, great work. You always remind me of the guys that Wild Bill Donovan pulled together on OSS, the tough, hard hombres that helped to build this. So thank you very much. Honored to have you on here, brother.
Thank you.
Incredible speech. In fact, we'll get that up and put it up on my Getter account, a speech of Sam Faddis at Hillsdale. Hillsdale is fantastic who they invite out there, and the breadth of access to people that the Hillsdale students get. I hope the students out there appreciate what their administration is doing to bring in so many different voices. I'm going to be in Carolina. We're going to be doing the show from there over the next couple of days. I will be giving a speech tomorrow. Very honored to be invited down in Moore County, but to do the Lincoln Reagan Day dinner. Very excited about that. Hopefully it is a barn burner. I kind of committed that beforehand. I think we've had a pretty good track record. We'll be doing the shows tomorrow. Got a lot to go through. Not simply on the debt, but the convergence of all this and what it means to have the House right now. And remember, we have the House, and now we got to start punching back. You got Mike Johnson, you got all these other patriots, but we've got some levers of power here. And it's time to get on with it as we are. People are working nonstop. We were trying to get Eli Crane and folks on today. They're voting. They're in committee meetings. Trying to get Eli and a couple other folks on. You had Matt Rosendale. So we're trying to book even more. Also, Julie Kelly. So much going on across the board. We haven't had time to get to, as we've been focused on the historic fight on Capitol Hill. Also want to thank the team at Birch Gold. It's more important than ever. I think what you owe yourself and you owe your family is to really immerse yourself in this, in about gold. Just don't make a snap judgment, but really immerse yourself about why has been a hedge to mankind for, the last 5,000 years of recorded history in turbulent times. The times are only going to get more turbulent. We got a lot of fight ahead of us in order to set things right. It's going to be set right, but there's going to be a lot of fight. And so things are only going to get more turbulent throughout the world. Now I think it's time to talk to Philip Patrick and the team. Go to birchgold.com/Bannon. Now we've put out tons of free information. Everything you need to learn to kind of understand the way the system works, particularly how our currency, how the fiat currency, the Federal Reserve note, how that drives so much of the world economy, and just as a instrument, the instrumentality of that. And what's happening to it. You can understand so much going in the world today if you understand that. Go to birchgold.com/Bannon. We are back here tomorrow morning, live from North Carolina at 10 a.m. in the morning. See you then.